Thom Brotski, and I hate that picture. My wife took that for me. It looks like my waiter outfit. I was serving dinner somewhere, I don't know. Tell you a little bit about myself. As Sean had said, I've worked with a lot of different companies as an employee, worked as an electrician, I worked as a maintenance manager, engineering manager, reliability director, plant manager for a stint, and I've had the opportunity to be able to sit and see industry mature and evolve over the years. Basically about 40 years of experience in maintenance and reliability as well as operations. And my experience with KCF started, I think Matt is out here somewhere, I can't see you, but we started right around 2016, 2015, maybe in that time frame. So I guess I'm kind of an old timer with KCF and have a lot of time under my belt and the pleasure, and I know David down here and John, we had the pleasure to install, I don't know, literally tens of thousands of sensors across multiple plants. And so I want to share a little story with you first, and it kind of tells you about KCF and my experience with them. And so this weekend, I have a hobby, and it's called ERL, Extreme Long Range Shooting. And I spent 3 days in the New Mexico desert this weekend, and near Albuquerque, New Mexico. And so my next step was to come here for this presentation and meet with all of you. And so I got on the plane in Albuquerque yesterday afternoon, and I was to be here right around 9 o'clock last night. And unfortunately, the flight attendant's seat in Albuquerque had malfunctioned, and it caused us about a 2.5-hour delay. And so back up a little bit. When you do this competitive shooting, if you've ever done it, if any of you have done it, it's an interesting bunch of characters out there. And there was one gentleman there, and you may know the name. His name was Rob O'Neill. And we sat down with Rob, I think it was Saturday night. We were chit-chatting about the shoot and how everybody did. And we started talking about failure and fear and things like that. And Rob is an interesting guy. And he said, it's not failure we should be afraid of. What we should be afraid of is not trying. And I took that with me, and I thought about that last night when I was sitting in O'Hare because I had missed my flight, and I was looking at failure because I wasn't going to get here on time. And so I'm texting Matt, and I'm texting Sean, and it's like, okay, man, I got to get here. How are we going to do this? Keep trying, never quit. And so we found a way. We said, okay, there's no other flights left unless we go up to Johnston. And so Sean says me the flights. I do the changes with the United folks. And sure enough, I get to Johnston last night about 11 o'clock. And so my sleep time is going down. And anyway, so I'm waiting there, and my bags don't show. So one thing I can tell you about KCF, they will give you the shirt off their back. Thank you, Matt. But I'm waiting there, waiting for my bags, which didn't come, and Matt walks up, and I said, okay, well, where's the car? Let's get going. He said, I didn't bring a car. I said, what? What, are we walking? And a fine gentleman was with him named Tom. I'm sorry, Tom, I don't remember your last name. And Tom had brought his airplane. So we walk out, and there's this beautiful airplane sitting out on the runway for us to fly here to State College. And my point is that what Rob O'Neill told me is never quit trying. Don't always try the new things. Try, just keep trying. And KCF will be with you the whole time. Last night, they gave me the shirt off their back, and they got me here. They did whatever it took. And I'll tell you, from 2016 till now, that's been my experience working in corporate America, if you will, as in various different jobs, and even today when I'm consulting with my clients. And so, with all that said, I want to talk a little bit about what's called monetizing reliability, and I want to share some stories with you and an approach that I use to when I meet with my customers, when I worked in the plants as a maintenance guy, was a reliability guy, And I want to be able to monetize reliability and not just reduce costs, but let's make money with this innovative technologies like KCF. And then let's use these things, which I've used for years, called value drivers. And it's a little model that I've put together, and this model is nothing unique other than it's just a way to start thinking about how do we monetize reliability? How do we make money from reliability? And you know, we heard some great stories this morning, Christine, and I mean, there's some really cool stories about it's not just, you know, saving money, it's making money. It's getting one more product out the door. So I meet with, I met with a client about 2 weeks ago, a new client, and when I meet with clients, and this one was rather unique because they were forward enough to let me meet with their whole organization. So I literally met with the CEO of the company, and they're a food-based company. They make meat, and but I met with the CEO, I met with operations folks, I met with folks down on the floor, and I start talking about value with them, and that's the first question, because in the next slides I'll show you, but when you start talking about value and how does good maintenance, how does good reliability bring value to your company, and then how can you weave innovative technologies into it? So there's questions that I asked the folks. I said, okay, what is value? What are your value drivers? And a lot of times you get that blank stare because in a lot of times you'll have companies that, you know, haven't asked themselves that question. I shouldn't say just, but they're looking to reduce failures. But how do you, again, take this innovative technology and change the way your organization works? And again, that question becomes, how does my organization see value? And that can vary on the organization. You know, what's value for a meat processing plant or an aggregate plant is different for a utility. It's different for an oil and gas plant. How can I bring value to my organization and its processes? Because that's what we're doing here. We're trying to take an innovative technology and weave it into our maintenance processes, weave it into our reliability processes. Where are the value opportunities or the drivers? And that's what I'm going to talk more about. Where are those drivers in my maintenance processes, operations, engineering? We talked about new capital projects at our plant. Let's take these innovative technologies and get them on the front end. Let's not wait till the plant is built and we're failing bearings. Let's get it there, and then we can start up our plant and start it up in a precision state. How can I monetize reliability using innovative technologies? So again, what is value? Value comes in all these different forms, but I really like the very last sentence here. There's society value, there's economic value, there's employee value, there's customer value. There's all these different values out there, but how do we integrate them and how do we think about them? How do we take these technologies and address these types of values that we're going after? So again, business value is not necessarily quantifiable. It may be tangible or intangible or both in many cases. So again, when you're working with your organizations, when I work with my clients, when I work with different businesses, I start asking these questions and we try to find out where these are so we can put focus where the most value is. So I talked earlier about, I meet at different levels of organizations, and if I'm talking to the CEO of a company or if I'm talking to the vibration analyst at the floor, I have two different conversations. I'm talking about the same thing. I'm talking about how do we bring value, but each component, each person within those organizations come with different thoughts. So I bring this slide up for one reason. A lot of times companies, organizations struggle to get the finances, the money, put the economic picture together for their organization to sell, say, a KCF or some innovative technology in their plant. And when you have those conversations, when you make those proposals, really need to think about who are you talking to? If I'm talking to the vibration tech and I'm thinking, hey, is this a good idea to bring in KCF sensors? How does that make his life better? I've heard a couple of discussions talk about that. You know, can that vibe tech go home on time? Can the maintenance manager not get phone calls at 2 in the morning because now he's integrated innovative technologies into his processes, his maintenance and reliability processes? But one thing I found common with all of them, and I heard it from one of the other speakers too, is a lot of times we have the folks in the plants, in the mills, in the factories that like the visibility. And some do, some don't. But I found that with most folks, if I as an employee, if I as a CEO can use an innovative technology and bring return on my investment to my company, it's good visibility. It sells the next project I want to do. So we saw this earlier in the conversations in one of the presentations, but what I found with a lot of my clients and a lot of first-timers or starters into this business is, and it's natural, what you're really looking for is how can I catch failures? How can I stop or prevent or identify that 2 a.m. phone call that I'm going to get because this feed water pump is going to be down or it's shaking itself out the door. And what we do is we really focus on that. And that's good. I mean, there's money there. You will pay for your systems when you buy them. And a lot of you know this already. I'm preaching to the choir in many sense here. But it's really only 20% of the value that you can capture. And we, again, saw this from Jeremy's presentation. But how do we, if you look at the second one, how do we optimize our maintenance practices, our reliability practices? There's 30% value in that, in your overall investment. And if you really looked at the other, the piece that really drives the value in this sort of innovative technology as KCF is how do I improve, how do I optimize my processes? How do I make one more widget? How do I make one more ton of pulp? How do I make another 1 MMBTU of energy for my customers? So the process I've put together, and I started this years ago because quite often, again, you're going out there, and my clients really seem to like this because you can't take this technology. You're going to obviously start out and you're going to look for failures, but now what? And we have X amount of employees in our businesses and our organizations, and we can't work on everything. So what I try to do is I try to say, okay, let's find out where the most value is. Again, it's just a matter of prioritization. Let's take a look at the different drivers and where can we find the most money for you by using this technology. And what I have here, I gotta make sure I'm talking this properly. What I have here is, and this model is just unique for maintenance, and I've done this, a different type of model for operations and a variety of different processes within organizations. But for today's discussion, it's where do I put my efforts when I'm using this technology to improve, really to drive total maintenance value, drive total reliability value, monetize reliability, and there's really two sides of this coin, if you will. Uptime hours, what's that marginal uptime hour worth? And then maintenance cost. And of course, I remember in my world as maintenance manager, I was always driven, I was always beaten as to why my maintenance cost was so high. How do I bring that down? And then on the other side, my ops folks were always thinking, okay, how do I get one more ton out the door? How do I get an extra 1,000 gallons out the door? Whatever it might be. And so again, as an organization, when you're thinking about innovative technologies, weaving them into your maintenance and reliability processes, let's take a look, let's drill down into your organization, let's drill down into your processes, and in this case, your maintenance process, and say, okay, where can we go to work? And where is the most value? So, and I'm not going to go through all these but I think just by looking at the graph itself, you can see, as you start thinking about where you work and where you're integrating this type of technology, where can I start finding the most value for my organization? And that's where you put your effort. You can't do it all, so let's find out where the most value is. So when I sit down with a client, I say, okay, we go through this, we do a heavy analysis, and we say, oh, let's start on PM optimization. And it's a funny thing because it's interesting with a lot of my clients, that's where we find a lot of value outside the finding failures. Nope, too far. So I'm just going to share with you one of my clients that I had, actually have recently. It's a mining client up in Nova Scotia, and it's quite a haul getting up there, and it's in the boonies. But they have 15 facilities, roughly 11,000 full-time equivalents or employees, about $9 billion in sales. They are the bottom quartile of their industry, and when they came to me, and as far as performance goes. And this is kind of my estimate. We do an assessment with the company, and this is a common assessment where they agree at the end of the day. It's not Tom's opinion, it's their opinion once we've discussed it. But it's they're number 3 on a scale of 1 to 10, and they're fundamentally weak. I guess I would say, if you were to think about evolution, they're kind of in the Neanderthal stage. And I know, I've been there before in some of the companies I've worked with. It's not a good place to be, but there's only room for improvement, so that's the cool part about it. Highly reactive, and again, we heard that from some of the other presenters too, is that, if you look at maintenance and reliability of the past, it was mostly reactive. But their goals were, and they were great goals, is they want to focus on the fundamentals, PMs, maintenance planning, reliability. They want to integrate innovative technologies, so the leadership was smart enough to understand that it wasn't just good planning, it's not just good PMs. They were smart enough to understand that there's enough technology out there like KCF that they can weave into their maintenance and reliability processes and make them even better than what they are today. Their goal is to be first quartile maintenance cost, and of course, improve uptime and reliability. Going back to this guy right here, they wanted to hit. I don't know if I have a laser here. No, I guess not. So getting up into the uptime hours, marginal cost per hour. So one example, and it really sounds simple, and I think I heard some of these from some of the other presentations as well, but they had a maintenance practice, an annual feed pump exchange every year. Every year they would do this. They had 9 pumps, roughly 50K per pump core, if you will. 8 hours repair time, 5 craftsmen, at $108 an hour, that's all in. 5K worth of consumables. You have to have an alignment specialist on site. They had to haul them in from Turkey, and of all places. And 8 available units, and then they had 1 spare that sat just in case. And contribution to a failure or going down was about $40,000 an hour. So again, every year they would go and swap out all these pumps, do a rebuild, they'd be ready to go the following year. They had failures. Fortunately, they had the spare pump where they could take one offline, bring on the spare, and then repair that one. Again, 8 pumps adequately did it. Plant knows that the pumps can't perform longer than 12 months, but inadequate information to predict that. Bring in technology as KCF. Mean time between failures didn't exist. Unplanned repairs, generally 3 times the cost of a planned repair. Pretty standard stuff when you talk about maintenance. So deploy sensors, 4 sensors per system to each pump, and plant assumes that pumps can't survive. I hate to call it gut feeling, but I guess through their analysis, they felt that they could go 18 months on these pumps, and the data showed us that with the sensor deployment. And I guess it really comes down to the result at the end of the day. Under their current practice, or their practice of doing the annual swap, every 3 years we were looking at almost $3 million worth of cost to that. And once they went to their optimization strategy, over a 3-year repair cost was about 1.8. So, roughly looking at $900,000 over that period. And again, that's one opportunity of the literally 20,000 PMs that they had. Now, of course, not all of them had the same impact, but there's, and we ran into this before with another company, is that of this aggregate of all these PMs that they had, we were able to weed out about 20 to 30% of them. And if you go back to, I'm going to try and go up here, this guy right here, what we started gaining was earned hours capacity. We started gaining the opportunity to have, say, an electrician and a mechanic that were working completely on these repairs, and now they were working on other things. So in this case here, in the case study I had here, and I didn't show it, what they were able to gather is they were able to gather basically an additional person, because they weren't having to do things like this. And then as aggregate, they were able to pick up basically 3 full-time equivalents without even having to hire anybody, just based on redeployment of those hours. These you may have seen before. These are some of my favorites. using KCF technologies, using technologies that are innovative, you can go after contractor costs. Are we using vibration services in our plants? And we heard that today. Do we really need vibration services when we can deploy hundreds, thousands of these little sensors around our plant and then redeploy those services to somewhere else? Opportunity here, roughly $400,000 a year. Earned hours capacity, just talked about that. Plant 3 basically picked up $100,000 a year by adding 1,000 hours. Process asset optimization, Plant 7. Basically, how do we run this refiner? How do we run this piece of equipment? We're able to trim the components within this piece of equipment, optimize it by using the KCF technology, and again, saved ourselves about $200,000 a year. One of my favorites, of course, and this is getting after the bad actors and the failures, was $600,000 a year with a very simple deployment. So, again, going back to my story with KCF, my experience with them, they've always been behind me. They've always had my back, even yesterday. And as far as integrating them with new technologies into my plants and my customers, I'm using them today. And I'm just sharing, this is my company, Harrison Group. I have 3 different divisions, and the one we're talking about today is the industrial division, which is the top. And basically our driver is to push drivers for our customers and improve and optimize our maintenance and reliability. Thank you.